Hello, this is Riley Smith with MakeGood Creative Network. I asked my dog to stop crying and panting heavily, and he said no. So he's gonna be my co-star today. I am a self-published and traditionally published writer. Currently, I have 7 books on Amazon. I'm gonna have to count. I would have to recount. I have 5 to 7 books on Amazon and over 20, I think, on various other places, including Scribd, which is another ebook provider and audiobook provider, a lot like Amazon Audible. I prefer it to Audible, not just because they have some of my books on there that are not available anywhere else, but because it's a little cheaper. Anyway, this is not sponsored by anybody. I'm just getting distracted and thought I would do a shout out for Scribd because I enjoy the app. All of this to say that I am a writer. I have finished books and I have published them and people have enjoyed them. So I thought I would take some time today to talk to you about what to do once you've finished your first draft. Finishing the first draft is in itself such a huge accomplishment and such a big deal and a time-consuming endeavor. I'll probably do a different video on just like how do you push through to the end of the draft, how do you make an ending. Like there's so many different things to talk about with that, but this is for what to do after your first draft. We do have other videos available right now about what to do if you're writer blocked and what to do before you start writing your book, which can help you if you're having a hard time finishing an idea. But today is all about what do you do after you finish that first draft. You have it, it's done, it's marvelous, except it's probably not very good because it's the first draft. So how do you start dealing with your 80,000 words or whatever it is and make it the absolute best it can be? The number one first thing that you must do when you finish your first draft is celebrate. Holy heck, you just wrote a book. So many people say that they're going to do that and never do. So celebrate, even if it's just like buying yourself a little itty bitty cupcake, but the one that you really like, or throw a fucking party, or just like have some drinks with friends, like do something to commemorate this. This is a big deal. You finished. Holy heck, great job you. Once you are done celebrating, you've done your little woohoo, I did it. Make sure you do that step. Don't skip it. It's a big deal. Celebrate you. If you can stand it, the next step is to put the book down and away for a little bit before you come back and edit. I have a hard time with this, but I have noticed that, I mean, it's just, if you're gonna notice things and you're going to be able to look at the book with fresh eyes. Like, do I even need to really explain this one? I'm impatient, so sometimes I can only put the book down for like 3 days, and then I come back to it and start the editing process, which we'll talk about next. But if you can, like, put it aside for like a month, that's awesome. That would be really good. If you can put it aside and come back to it, it will make editing go so much smoother if you can take a break from the book. But I also understand if you're like me and you're like, I'm so excited, I have to keep working on this right now. If that is you, okay. Try to give it definitely give it at least a day, like at least a day. Put the book down for frick's sake, but at least 3 days at least would be good. Of just like not looking at it, not thinking about it, not talking about it. Do your best. I know it's hard, but it'll help you when you start editing, which is our next step. And the editing step is probably why you clicked on the video. It's like, oh my God, I have this book. How do I start? Like, I keep looking at it and I just get overwhelmed. Here's what you do. We're going to break the editing process and all the things that you can do to improve a book down into different discrete steps so that you can focus on one thing at a time and make it nicer on your little brain. okay? So the very first thing that we're gonna do is to just let spell check take a crack at it. If you're like me, you pretty much ignore Google spell check or like word spell check, whatever. You don't do that while you write because it's generally wrong. I even turn off the little like squiggly boys a lot of times because it's generally like it just picks up words that like, it's like, that's a name. That's a perfectly reasonable spelling of a name. It is not a misspelling, but thank you. But I do notice that once I finish a draft and I do go through, like Google catches stuff that you didn't notice. So let the spell checker or whatever word processor you're using, if you haven't been doing that as you go, and even if you have, let it do the like actual click on it, run the, you know, spelling and grammar suggestions and consider what it has to tell you, just to get some easy things out of the way. Easy wins. Just knock it out of the park. Easy. Next thing we're going to do is just take a first look for very obvious things. Okay, this is just kind of reorient you. When you're writing, things are kind of a blur. So this first look is going to give you kind of a reorientation of what does the book look like from beginning to end. Just go through and look for the obvious, like see what strikes you as wrong, like weird grammar things, or wow, that sentence is trash. That sentence doesn't make any sense, because that will happen. So go ahead and go through just looking for the most obvious glaring problems. Mark them, fix them as you go. This is also the read through that will hopefully reveal to you if you need larger structural edits. If this first look tells you that you're like, oh, fuck, I need a whole other chapter introducing these characters to each other, or you might realize, oh, this scene is in the wrong place. So this is also the read through to be thinking about structure and just noticing if something seems terribly wrong. You don't have to worry too much about this. Don't agonize. Just if something seems obvious, then go ahead and write it down and spend time correcting it. Anything that you don't catch will be caught later in our later steps, so don't worry. Just look for the most egregious, obvious things right now. The next step is to search for errors that you know you make. If you have been writing for a while, you probably have your greatest hits of grammar and things that you do. Your greatest hits of grammar mistakes and things like that. For example, I've noticed I say, she was going to try and go to the farmer's market. It's try to go. It's not try and verb. It's try to verb. What am I doing? So, you know, like this is very easy to find. I can literally just I do a Control F at this point in my editing process and like search for try and replace them all with try to, done. There are a couple other things like that I do. Your things will be specific for you, but this is the moment to look for stuff that you know that you do a lot. If you have favorite words, if you know that you use the word just a whole lot. That's another one that's mine. I just throw in justs, and they're not always necessary. Sometimes you just don't need them. So think about what are your things and take this time to look for specifically those things that you know you often do and correct them. You know, as long as they're not like a stylistic choice. Obviously there's some nuance here, but my excessive use of just is just a reflex, not a choice. So I often have to go through and edit those out. Next, we're gonna get into what I think are some of the more fun editing rounds. The next round is your character and setting consistency check. You may have already done this while you were writing. If you're one of those people who use like an app to like record all of the information about your characters, or like you already had your spreadsheet and you know for a fact that you got everyone's eye color right because you always refer to the spreadsheet, then you probably don't need this step. Honestly, if you want to, you can go through and check one more time, make sure everything is consistent. But if you're like me and you just kind of write what feels good and you don't really keep track, then you're gonna need this step. So on this step, this is the character and setting consistency check. I think it's fun. It can get a little tedious, but it is very important because your readers will notice inconsistencies in your character descriptions and setting descriptions. So this is just looking anytime a character is described. And if you want to get a little more in depth, just considering them as a person whenever they speak or act, whenever they do a thing, are they being consistent? If in chapter 1 you say that this character lady is very squeamish about gross things, then you don't want in chapter 5 for her to just clean up a baby's potty accident without any reaction. You'd want to make some kind of edit to make it clear why she's fine now, or make it so that she's not fine this time. That kind of thing. This is going to require a lot of note-taking, a lot of carefully thinking about your characters. If you really love the world that you built, this will be fun. If you're tired of it and don't want to look at it anymore, then take a break. Take a break from the book and come back and do this step a little bit later. Also consider your setting like a character. People describe it, people talk about their feelings related to it. Keep track of how people are talking about the setting and where things are. You don't want to say that the children spend most of their time in the second floor nursery and then later you put the nursery on the first floor. That's simple. So consider your setting like a character, which is generally good writing advice anyway, and keep track and make sure that that is consistent as well. The next step is probably my favorite part of editing because I'm a very dialogue person. I love having characters talk. I like talking. I like to talk. So this next section is just focusing on your dialogue. You may have already looked at it a little bit when you were working on character consistency. What you're going to do, and I know this is going to take a long time, but it will really, really help, I promise. You're going to read out loud all of your dialogue. You're going to say it out loud, listen to it, see what it sounds like. Even better, record it and then listen back to it, but that's pretty time consuming. I've actually never done that because it would be good if I did. That would be optimum, but I do not have the patience. So just reading it aloud is also fine, but say all of the dialogue aloud, listen to the flow of it, edit to make it sound more natural without making it too natural and putting back in all the likes and justs that you took out in the first place. But reading your dialogue aloud is super helpful to listen to it. Sometimes we write stuff that seems totally fine, but then when a reader looks at it, it's going to seem really gross. They're going to think this is really hackneyed, this is not how people talk. You've heard that, you've seen that review, you've read books and thought that this isn't how people talk. And of course, we don't write exactly how people talk. That would be tedious. That would be pretty boring. But if it doesn't sound good read aloud, it will sound poor in the reader's head. That is an example of a sentence that would perhaps need some editing, but you get what I mean. The next and final round of editing for this phase of the post-writing a book process, this can be the hardest. You'll get better at this over time, but this is all about style. This is the style check for your book. You've checked all the details, you've checked grammar, you did that first read through for the really horrible sentence structure and things that did not flow. But now you're going to get into it and really, really improve it. In general, you're just looking at, okay, how do I improve the language of my book? How do I improve how this sounds? Where can I find spots to make things more concise? Where can I find spots to make things more clear? Where can I find spots to make things prettier? This metaphor is a little plain. How do I make it nicer? There's a lot of nuance and variation here, but you need to spend that time focusing on it to make the book its absolute best. So some things to consider during this round are sentence length. This will vary with genre, but it is good to like vary your sentence lengths generally. Have some longer sentences and shorter sentences. Fast-paced, hard-boiled thriller might tend itself to shorter sentences. It depends a lot on what author and what style they're going for, but if you have all sentences that are like really, really short and choppy, just da-da-da, like that can get a little tiresome, just like having really, really long sentences, but sometimes that's the style. So if that is the style you're going for, make sure it's a choice. If it's a choice, it's fine. If that is the style that you are going for, coolio. But make sure that it is a conscious choice and not just something that happened accidentally for like half of a chapter for some reason. If you find that like half of a chapter is just like all short sentences, switch up the sentence length a little bit. Similarly, look at sentence structure. There were segments of my debut book, Cardinal, where like for long swaths of time, the sentence structure was I, action, verb, adverb. Like that was every sentence. And thankfully somebody pointed it out to me, but that definitely needed to be like changed up. I wanted a lot of like, strong sentences, but like strong actions, but that was a little excessive. Another thing to look at for this is repetition. Are there words that you use over and over? Like, what was your favorite word that month? And now it's like 60,000 times in your book. So keep an eye out for words that you use over and over that you didn't mean to. Maybe that is, again, maybe it's a choice, but double check and make sure it is a choice and not an accident, because readers will notice that. Readers will notice that thing. But the number one thing that you are looking for in the style read through is flow. Does everything flow? Does everything move along? Is there anything that's gonna break a reader out of your world? And that's why we look at some of these other things, but it all comes down to, does this all flow together to keep a reader moving along your magical journey? At this point, you will be happy to hear that the bulk of your work is done. You have done a ton of editing. Your book is way better than the first draft. Congratulations, but now it's time to see what other people think. So now you're gonna get some beta readers. I tend to do 2 rounds of beta readers. This is just the first round. For the first round, I often pick people who I know will be nicer, who I know who will be a little less critical, because the book's still a baby, So if you're a little sensitive, especially if like this is your first book, then pick people up for your beta readers. And by beta reader, I mean people who read the book before it is done, before the final draft, and give feedback. That's the point. So you're giving this to people who are then going to tell you what they think. I usually ask just for 3 things. One, for them to tell me, 1, what brought joy, what didn't bring joy, number 2, and number 3, what was confusing. There will be things that seem utterly clear to you but are super confusing for people reading your book at this stage. So those are the simple questions that I ask my beta readers. Often at this point, it is better to ask people who you know will be nicer to you. But if you want to just get down to the nitty-gritty and find out what is wrong with your book, then skip that. Give it to the people who you know will be most critical of your work and give you good feedback. Try to cultivate those people. If you don't have any, you can find some on Twitter. People ask all the time on #writing_community for beta readers. Etiquette is that you pay some nominal sum. This isn't editing. You're asking them to read your book and give you some feedback. So it's like, hey, I can give you $20. I can send you $5 for a coffee, depending on how you're doing, depending on what you got going on. But giving somebody a little bit of money just shows that you respect them, their opinion, their time. So find your first beta readers, either people that you know personally, who you trust their opinion, or people on Le Twitter. Then you are going to be forced to wait as people read your book. I would say wait at least a month, even if people get back to you much quicker. Give yourself that time and that distance. You have been agonizing over this text, doing all of those editing things that I told you to do before. So give yourself some time. Give yourself a break. Wait at least a month, and until you have everybody's feedback, before you go in and start editing. This is another step where you might find out that you have some major revisions to do. You might find out that you're missing a whole character who needs to be there to it, or that a whole character doesn't need to be there and you could condense two characters into one. Your beta reader feedback might tell you that you need to work out some kinks in the plot. Hello. Hi, baby. Hi, Smiley. Oh, he's very cute. He's giving me a big smile. He's like, oh, mama, give me all your attention. I want all of the attention. Anyway, I'm just petting my dog. Don't worry about it. Make sure that you have all of your beta readers' feedback back to you before, like everyone who's going to actually finish the book, make sure you have their feedback before you go back in to revise, because you want to see if people agree with each other. A lot of times people won't. They will, like, one person will tell you, like, I didn't like this character, like, this side character you have is a bitch, I really don't enjoy them. And then somebody else will be like, this character is the funniest character and I want them to have their own book. You know, people are going to have different opinions. That's why you do multiple beta readers. I recommend 5, at least 3, no less than 3, but I recommend at least 5 is a really good number for this round. So wait to get everybody's feedback. Take a look at what everybody says. If all of your beta readers tell you your dialogue sounds weird, they're probably right, boo, I'm sorry. Like, if everybody that you ask has the same opinion, you're gonna have to go correct that. But if everybody agrees on something, they're probably right, and you should at least heartily consider that feedback. But if people are disagreeing on stuff, feel free to pick whosever opinion you like the best. But really consider your beta readers' feedback and go back in and revise. They will make your book better. They will have good points. You don't have to do everything that they say, but really consider it. Try to get to the bottom of what they're actually saying and take the time to revise the whole book. I mean, you ask these people for a reason, right? Don't ask people's opinion who you don't respect. So that way, you know, it's harder to just ignore the good feedback that they gave you. So take some time to revise the book based on your beta readers' feedback. In your next step, once you've done that, you've got a draft that you have incorporated the beta reader feedback. You're going to read through it one more time like a reader, like you're just reading the book. And this might, again, you might have to take a little bit of time. And this is a phase that you could skip. I mean, you could skip any of these phases and figure out a process that works for you, but this is the process that helped me with my debut and I think made it the absolute best that it could be. This is a process that I think is extensive, but not excessive. But you could still skip steps if you want. I'm not your mom. I'm not gonna sue you, you know? But I do recommend reading it at this point like a reader. Just read your book. See if you enjoy it. See what you like and don't like. Just try to read it all the way through. Don't focus on like reading to revise right there. Just read it all the way through and then make revisions based on your feelings after that read through. At this point, your book is probably as good as you are going to make it on your own. So I suggest, if you can, at this point, to hire a professional editor. Why did we do all those things before if we were just going to hire a professional editor? Because you don't want to be bringing them a book that has basic grammar errors and they have to spend all their time and your money on that. No, you want to bring a good product to a professional so that they can help you make it even better, so that they can help you make it really excellent. If you are on a budget and hiring a professional editor to look at your whole book, you're like, fuck you, Riley, I cannot afford that. Relatable sentiment. You can also just get them to do the first 5 to 10 pages just to make sure that you're starting really, really strong. I did this for my debut Cardinal, and the editor ended up telling me that I was starting in the wrong spot, that I should have a whole different chapter 1. And she was super right, and it made the book way better. So it is worth it to have, and she also gave a bunch of like really good edits for what was the first 10 pages. So whatever you can afford, even if it's just having somebody look at the first 5 pages, hell, even if it's just looking at the first page, I mean, that's often what people do, right? I'm a lunatic, so I flip open to like page 20 and start looking at it to see if I want to buy a book. But most people look at the first page. Hiring a professional editor for that is a really good idea. Whatever you can afford. All right, once the editor has helped you with your book or with a section of the book and you have made revisions according to their help, don't ignore their help. You might disagree with them, that sucks, but you might pay a professional editor and still disagree with them on stuff. That's okay, but just like try to incorporate what they're saying. Like, you hire them for a reason, really try to think about it. Don't be stubborn. I know this is your baby, but don't be stubborn. Consider what they say, make changes. Otherwise, you've really super wasted your money. The next thing we're going to do, and this is another step that you could potentially drop, but I don't recommend that you do, is a second round of beta reads. This will probably just be 3 people this time. I mean, you want to leave some people to buy the book later. Anyway, pick 3 people who you really, really trust their opinion. You think they're very knowledgeable. You know that what they say, you're going to take it to heart and consider when you are making your final revisions. Pick the most critical people you know, whose opinion you respect. Pick 3 of them, ask them to beta read. Give them some time to look at that. Again, wait like a month, come back. Yes, this is a long process. It is a long process to edit a book and make it really, really good. This takes a while. Like I said, you can cut out certain steps or just wait less time than I recommend to make it go a little faster if you want. If you're impatient, I understand. But I think that this is, again, it's beneficial to give yourself this time. You'll make the best possible book that way. Take your last round of beta reader feedback. These really critical people whose opinion you really, really, really respect. Like, for example, this is the point where I let my boyfriend read my stuff because he's very smart and I really respect his opinion on literature. We read books together all the time. He's very detail oriented and I'm not, which is super helpful. He doesn't get to see a book until I feel like it's pretty darn good because he will be honest. He will lay it out for me what the problems are. So usually he gets a book when I'm feeling really confident about it. But he's a great person at this stage because he will absolutely flat out tell me what the book needs to improve. Then you're gonna do your last revisions from that feedback. Yes, last revisions, this is it, this is the final. Revise based on those beta reader feedback. And then we do just one last read through, one final read through of the book. This is it, I swear, nothing else. Just take one last look at your book. Holy heck, it's beautiful. You did a great job. The editing is mwah, 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 mwah. All right, your betas are all super excited with you. Your betas, because you're the alpha. Your beta readers are all super excited with you. And you do that last read through, make sure you caught everything, no silly typos, and also just like general looking, like see if there's any last tweaks you want to do. But that's it. That is the last read through. You done did it. Time to celebrate and time to query a literary agent or publish that hoe, all right? Take the book. You did it. It looks beautiful. And share it. Share it somehow. Share it. Just bind it and give it to your grandmother. If that's all you want to do with it. Again, that's up to you. But now is the point to put it out there, to let people read it. You did it. You done did it. You made a book. That is my advice on what to do after you finish your first draft. Yes, it is a lengthy, kind of strenuous process, but this breaks it down into steps. Take this just one chunk at a time, step by step. Give yourself breaks. Get ready for feedback and to actually listen to what other people say to you about your book. It can be hard sometimes, but it'll be better if you do. And then you'll be ready to publish it, and you can rest easy knowing that however it's received, whatever people think about it, you made your book the absolute best that it can be, that you did your absolute best with it, and you can be proud of it and know that your book appreciated the effort. That's all for this. If you want some more help on feeling creative, if you're feeling blocked, we have a guide for you in the description below. It's called the 21 Creativity Killers. This will walk you through all the things that could be holding you back creatively, whether that's some source of insecurity or some source of writer's block or just something that's draining your energy or just some way to optimize your flow. Whatever it is, it's probably in there. So take a look, download that guide for absolutely free. Check that out in the description below. But most importantly, let's go edit a book. Woo! This is the real star.
Yeah? You gonna apologize for disrupting the video? No, absolutely not. Okay. Alright, say bye, Grizzy. Bye-bye. We're gonna go on a walk now.